Welcome to Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, a podcast that illuminates real solutions to common problems within the parking industry. I'm your host, Brian Wolff, CEO of Parker Technology, and in each episode, I'll introduce you to real parking pros that will bring their own tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks, parking a car. On the show today is Brandon Lauterbach, CPP. Brandon Lauterbach is a co-founder and EVP with Pivot Parking. He's an industry leader with more than 20 years experience in all verticals within private and public sectors, including municipal, on-street and off, enforcement, commercial, residential, mixed-use developments, surface lots, valet, events, hospitality, and consulting. In other words, he's done a lot in parking. As a parking operations subject matter expert with a proven track record of producing optimal efficiency and financial returns for various types of programs, he's collaborated with city officials, asset owners, developers, property managers, and industry-leading parking consultants. Projects include advising how implementing the latest technology can have a positive impact on new or existing parking assets and programs. Brandon is a certified parking professional, as evidence of the CPP, and I've learned that that's really important. A prior recipient of NPA's 40 Under 40, and an active member of all of the predominant national and regional parking associations. Brandon, welcome to Harder Than It Looks.
Thank you, Brian. Happy to be here and excited to be invited, and I've been looking forward to it. I was actually waiting on somebody to show up to do hair and makeup for this thing, but I guess that wasn't part of the package.
Well, you know what? I think you look great, and so given the fact that 90% of the folks probably listen versus watch, I think we're both safe. So what I like to do at the beginning is I like to hand you the mic. You can go back as far as you want to go. Tell me about, growing up if you want, and then tell us about each of the steps up to the point where you find yourself today.
Appreciate that again. So Brandon Lauterbach was born and raised down in Tidewater, Virginia. I've actually lived in Virginia my entire life. Never moved out, with the exception of every summer during high school, I would go and spend the summers with my dad up on the eastern shore of Maryland. So not too far away, but did get out of Virginia for a few months at a time during those summers. And that's actually where the more I thought about this, I actually got my start in parking during those summers, but I wasn't parking cars. I was actually parking boats.
Boats, interesting.
Rather. So
yeah.
So the first summer I went up there, I wasn't quite old enough to even get a worker's permit, because back then you had to be, I think it was 15 and 8 months, or there was before they would let you start officially working, right, and being employed by an employer. So I actually went down to the school library. My dad knew one of the administrators there and kind of, helped me sign off on this work permit so that I could get a job while I was there. One of the best jobs I ever had. Worked at a marina, but marina also had a dock bar. And this was back in the early 90s, mid 90s, when the go-fast boats were a fad and a thing, and cigarette boats. And so every weekend, everybody would come out with their boats and full of people and just tie up for the weekend. They had live music, bikini contests on Sundays. I mean, it was just a party throughout the entire summer, basically. But what we would do is we would raft up, at least 10 rows of boats, and then against the dock, and then they were, rolling those out 10 deep from there.
Wow.
And so the more I started thinking about it, I started parking back then even. So from there, I went on to college at VCU in Richmond, Virginia. And that's where I started out as a valet. Well, actually, I started at a restaurant, well-known restaurant downtown called Tobacco Company. If you've ever been to Richmond, it's kind of the landmark. It's an old tobacco factory warehouse that got converted to a restaurant about 40 years ago, and they're still going strong. And so it's just kind of the place to be. So I got a job there for about 6 months. Bellman from the Omni across the street came over and got to talking with him. He said, you could make a lot of money across the street. They need some valet parkers. And sure, why not? Always looking for that next buck. And so I signed up to be a valet. and ended up doing that for like the next 5 or 6 years, all throughout college and even after college. And then ended up becoming the doorman. This was back when, the hotels had doormen, to greet you, and then they would hand off the cars to the valet. So I kind of took that next step after valeting cars for several years, and ended up being kind of a quasi, because it was run in house through the Omni Hotel there, and so I did that for several years, and ended up kind of overseeing the valet program. But because the majority of my income was based on cash and tips, I started realizing that, well, now I'm going to be capped at a certain point, right? That they're not building any more rooms. This is as much cash as coming through this place. And so I said, well, let me try my hat at sales with the Omni and see that I can really start making the big bucks, and on the sales side of things.
Yeah.
So I jumped into sales at the Omni, did that for a couple of years, and was probably the worst mistake I had made in my professional career at that time.
So you got the valet, you went across to the hotel, but then it sounds like you moved up a little bit. So you were moving up in the world. You thought you would try something different, and then you went to sales. So tell us about that.
Yeah, got into sales, group sales, selling, groups, blocks of rooms, events, banquets, any type of group that would come to the Omni, because they had a couple ballrooms, 360 rooms, great, nice hotel.
Yeah.
And again, just trying, I was young. I was only, I think, 24 maybe, and just, figured it was time for a career, and that would make me all kinds of money. And I think I told my eventual wife at the time, when I was making similar money, I said, yeah, I'm making big bucks. And, when I get to a certain number, you don't have to work anymore. Well, that never happened.
Well, good for you.
If that's happening. But no, so the sales, like I said, it was probably the worst mistake I'd ever made at the time. And God bless, the folks that are in that industry. They're all great people. It is a fun industry. It's very collaborative and, social. But man, did they work, 10, 12-hour days. And then, of course, if you book an event, then you got to be there for the weekend to make sure that everything's running smoothly. And
yeah,
oh my gosh, it was more than I had imagined. Going from, like my valet schedule was Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. I clock out, I go hit the golf course, and, my day is done until I clock back in at 7 o'clock the next morning. Right. So just, the responsibility and the effort and the time that goes into that profession. So, I just wasn't happy. And I've always been a believer that, you got to like what you do. And if you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Right.
Yep.
And so I was starting to get to the point where I was keeping my ears and eyes open for something. Little did I know that I'd get a phone call about parking again. But in 2006, I got a phone call from the GM with Lanier at the time, and they actually managed the parking garage that the Omni was using for the valet storage.
Okay.
And she called me up. She said, hey, you probably don't know me, but, I understand you used to run the valet for the Omni, and I'd like to bounce some ideas off of you. And, of course, I was all ears. I said, yep, when do you want to meet? Yeah. So we met, I want to say that night, maybe the following evening, for a little happy hour, and at the tobacco company. And it was funny. We sat down, and the manager comes over and knew both of us, because we had both been there for years and going there for years. And so that was a common bond that we had immediately. And the city of Richmond had reached out to Lanier Parking at the time. And that, Lanier was running several parking garages in downtown Richmond, a couple portfolios. She said, Brandon, we run managed parking all day long, but valet, probably not our strong suit, at least, not here in town. So what do you think about, just helping us out, bounce some ideas off you, maybe do a consulting gig? And I said, hire me to run the damn thing, and you won't have to worry about it.
Nice.
In other words, get me out of where I am right now. Please. You have no idea how welcome your call was,
Yeah.
And so probably a couple days later, maybe a few days, Scott Diggs flies into town, who was, one of the co-founders of Lanier, and we'll get
Yep.
in. I'll talk about him a little bit more here in a little bit. So he flies in, sees this young kid, and valet experience, but no real management experience, which is what they were needing. And but we had dinner, and I convinced them that I was the man for the job, and I was going to make their lives easier, not have to worry about it. And he flew out the next morning, and I started, I think, 2 weeks later.
Nice.
But I'll never forget, I went to the GM at the Omni at the time, who I worked for several years. I got to know him really well, and I told him what I was doing and the move that I was going to make. And because this was a deal worked with the city, he said, Brandon, you do know that, they can pull the plug on this at any time. And I was young, naive. Oh, no, it's a 3-year contract. And no. We had that thing up and running maybe 6 months. And I got a call on a Tuesday afternoon saying, pull the podiums, we're done. And I said, oh, crap. I'm going to have to go begging on my knees back, to the hotel, to get my job back. But fortunately, Lanier had just assumed another portfolio, which had, I think, 6 parking garages at the time. And so I was able to just kind of, transfer into managing those. And then away I went. I mean, 15 years later, was at Lanier and, running everything they had in the Mid-Atlantic. And it was a fun ride, and it was a good ride. And that's, got to meet a lot of people, obviously, within the industry. And then, Lanier went through a couple of acquisitions, one in 2014, another one in 2019. And so just kind of started getting away from the old Lanier that I grew up with.
Yeah.
Some of the folks that transitioned out after the acquisitions. And so just started to have a different feel, unfortunately. And so fast forward to the pandemic in 2020. And Scott Diggs, who is, one of our co-founders as well, CEO of Pivot now. We always worked together, throughout the Lanier days, and got to know each other very well, now dear friends. And so we started kicking the tires on kind of doing Lanier 2.0, if you will.
Yeah.
And had this vision to kind of get back to the basics and just kind of, get back to parking 101, do it right, be transparent, have fun, work hard, play hard, like we had done, 15 years before. And so that's where we are now, right? So here we are celebrating our 4th birthday last month in Pivot. And I can't believe it's been 4 years already, but what a fun and wild ride that's been. And it's just been an awesome experience working with a couple of our team members that we'll get into here in a minute as well. But that's kind of the short, long version of my history and how I got to where I'm sitting here today. And
what a great story. Okay, so I'm just going to digress just for a minute, because I've got to hear one question that came to mind is, what's the biggest boat you've ever captained then, or that you had to park?
Well, yeah. So it was probably 110 footer at the time. Was the biggest that the dock that we had could accommodate. And it was a monster. It was big. In fact, I did one of my college essays was on being a ship captain, because at the time I thought that's where my career path may have gone at one point.
Right. I'm interested because I have experience very long time ago when I was a senior at Michigan. I got a job as the guy that cleaned the boat every day, and it was a 54-foot Bertram. And this was just an awesome boat. I think it left the dock 4 times that summer, but I had an awesome tan. My hair was blonde, and I was having a lot of fun on a 54-foot board trip, which was pretty rare. This was on Lake Michigan, and there were only 4 of them on Lake Michigan. I think I was on 3 of them that summer, which was kind of cool. So Merlin Hansen was the guy that owned the boat, and he was a good guy, and he eventually led me to my first job as well. He sat on the board of a bank, and so he said, "I'll get you the interview, but you got to get the job." I'm like, "Fine, I'll get the job." Kind of like the brash 24-year-old. I love that, where you're like, "Hey, just let me run the thing, and you won't have to worry about it." And
That's right.
obviously, they had confidence in you, and they're like, "Okay, let's put him in there. Let's give him a shot." All right, so then 4 years ago, you struck out with Scott and Tina and lots of others. I mean, Pivot made a big splash. There were some big names: Todd Brocious, Gary Means. I mean, you guys picked the cream of the crop. So tell me a little bit how you put that together.
So Tina, Reed, myself, again, both from Lanier. I think we're one of the few that don't have any original ties to Central Parking.
Yeah.
But she was with Lanier around the same amount of time, 15 years, give or take. And so I had been working with her and collaborating with her as kind of a counterpart because she's based in Greenville, South Carolina. And she was also hired by Scott Diggs. And so the 3 of us obviously knew each other. We had a lot of trust and confidence in each other and our abilities and, success that we had brought over the years as far as growth and just maintaining the operations and keeping everything on the tracks. And then Scott rather has a college buddy that he's also partners with in several other companies and has been over the years. Both kind of serial entrepreneurs, and so Paul Atkinson is also our other partner in Pivot and co-founder. So the 4 of us were the kind of the original co-founders, and then got everything up and running. Got the as Scott likes to say, got the rocket ship loaded with rocket fuel.
Yep.
And so between the 4 of us, we got everything on the track, got the train running. Got the rocket ship launched, and then didn't take long before we realized we were probably going to need some additional help. And so, started kind of strategizing and brainstorming as to who we thought we wanted to, join the team, and which was nice because we were able to be selective because at the time, we had already kind of made a splash in the industry and we had a lot of ears perked up, and we had some folks that were interested and liking what we were doing. And so we were able to be selective and kind of handpick who we thought would be the best fit for our team. Because again, the kind of our core values and the root of Pivot, is our integrity and, transparency and just, doing things right, making sure we're taking care of our employees, our customers, and our clients, right? Because you take care of the employees, they're going to take care of the customer.
Yes.
And as long as they're taken care of, then they're parking, then our clients are happy. And so, there's the full circle. And so it's, ground up core values that we wanted to instill. And so it's been, so Todd Brocious finally came on board. He took some convincing, it took a little longer than we would have liked at the time.
Yeah.
But we were finally able to convince him to kind of come over and take the helm as role of president. And Robert Sizik came over at the same time, but, both those guys with their decades of experience within the industry, but also the relationships and the reach that they have. Hell, at MPA, I don't think we got through 2 rows of the exhibit floor because every 5 steps, these guys had to stop and talk to somebody, right? Because they know everybody that's there.
They know everybody. Yeah, for sure. And everybody knows them.
Yeah. And so, exactly. And so, they were, high on our list, and we were super excited to have them on board. And obviously, they've done a tremendous job of helping us with our growth strategy. And then shortly thereafter, Gary Means was another great addition to our team. His institutional knowledge, as an operator, old Central guy, imagine that. And then eventually on the municipal side, as a client,
Yeah.
And everything that he did with the Lexington Lex Park program in Lexington
Yep.
speaks volumes, about his abilities and just what he brings to the table. So he's been a tremendous asset, particularly on the municipal side of deals that we're pursuing and managing. So he's been instrumental in both sides of that for us. Uh, but back to Tina, and just want to sing her praise a little bit as my partner and co-founder, and the knowledge that she brings, but also the diversity that she's helping us spearhead within the organization as well. I want to touch on that for a minute because, with
Yeah.
her involvement with women in parking and women in leadership, has brought tremendous value to our organization as well. Again, as far as one of our core values of diversifying in equity and inclusion,
Yep.
making sure that we're bringing on as many good people as we can. And right now we've got, a core of female executives and district managers that we have that are helping us grow in various markets as well. So we're super happy about that and excited to provide the opportunity for everybody that we brought onto the team in a very strategic and selective manner.
Yeah, so inclusivity is an important part of this platform for sure. So I applaud you for that. I thank you for that. Obviously, one of the things that strikes me about, and when I think about Tina and I think about you, I think about Scott. I just met Scott, I think, for the first time at MPA, and I think about humble people. I think about quiet leaders. None of you are particularly flashy or boastful. You strike me as a group that just wants to get it done. Robert Sizik, of course, and Todd. Gary's a super humble guy. All of you, I'll bet are pretty good teammates in the end, because it doesn't seem like anybody's trying to be the smartest person in the room, or none of you have trouble getting your heads through the doors, which I definitely appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you saying, and you're exactly right. I mean, part of it is that we do know each other so well. We don't have to compete with one another. We all know what we're capable of, what our history has been, what our successes have been, and it's just awesome. And we do, we get together in a room as often as we can to just bring out the whiteboard and just keep the brainstorming sessions going. We try to mix it up and get together down either in Wilmington or Greenville, wherever we can. But yes, we're not competing with one another when we do, but we also know how to work hard and get it done, like you said, and we also know how to play hard. And that's kind of a philosophy that we try to instill across the board with all of our teams as well. We always like to get, regardless of where we are and we're gathering, like to include all of our team members that are on the ground there as well, that are helping us in our success as well. So we definitely like to have a good time, but we don't like to brag. We also don't want to be the biggest and the baddest, right? I think we've seen in our histories, all of our collective histories, we've kind of seen how that can go. And so the beauty of this too has been our ability to kind of be nimble, kind of take that boutique approach to where we can just truly focus on doing what we set out to do, making sure that we're following up on what we've been promising. And so that's been a unique part of this growth as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. So let's go back to the culture just for a second. Tell me how you've established the culture, and then what's the secret sauce for maintaining the culture at Pivot?
Well, I think it's instilling kind of the family values, right? We're all a team. We all understand the sacrifice that all of our employees make with their families. And so knowing that they're going to spend just as much time, if not more, with us, we want to make sure that every operation has that family feel and vibe and culture to it. We want to be flexible with time off with our employees, knowing that they have personal lives outside of the company. They have families, and so we're really big on just making sure that our employees feel part of the family, making sure that message is constantly communicated, relayed, whether it's through social media or State of the Union calls, or, like I said, just, making the rounds. Todd, Scott, everybody gets out there in the field to the various markets, and making sure that they have a presence, and that, we know our employees' names. Hell, we've got, actually have a married couple that just had another kid not too long, about 3 or 4 months ago. And so he's already wearing Pivot gear.
Nice.
But they're both employees of Pivot. Corinne and Steven, shout out to them. Corinne is one of our district managers down in the city of Wilmington, but has also been advancing with us and on helping out with transitional exercises and making sure that we're on track as we open up and grow as quickly as we've been doing. So she's been a huge help in our growth. And, so it's just making sure we're keeping them engaged, Brian, and also keeping them motivated, and just, making sure everybody feels the love all the way down to our frontline employees and everybody that is involved.
Yeah. Well, the common thread that I hear a lot for successful operations are that the leaders are down on the front lines with everyone, right? They're not above the job of getting a little bit of dirt under their fingernails or getting their hands dirty. So I can't imagine, exactly right. Knowing all of you, I can't imagine that you probably all don't relish that. Actually, you probably love to get down there and park a few cars every once in a while.
It is fun. I'll have to admit, I actually enjoy it probably a little too much, probably to a fault. I'm here today. My manager had to have some contract work done at his house. It's my assistant manager's day off at this particular location, and so I'm actually sitting at his desk because I've been here holding it down today. So
yeah, all right.
So all of us have, take that same approach. We're never, like you said, afraid to roll up our sleeves, get down and dirty, and I think that's what also keeps us humble and keeps us grounded. Knowing that there is work to be done, and knowing how to do it from the ground up, and we all started pretty much from that position and working our way up.
Yeah, that's good. All right, so how big do you want to get with Pivot? Because you talked about you don't want to be the biggest and the baddest, but what's the aspiration? And then we're going to transition into keeping up. As you get bigger, things get harder, but certainly from a people perspective, but just from a technology perspective as well. So what's the sweet spot? And then let's talk about how you guys are coping with the technological changes that are taking place in parking.
Yep. Brian, I tongue in cheek said earlier, Lanier 2.0, and Lanier, when Scott was able to exit 2014 with Lanier, he had grown up to 450 locations at the time.
Yeah.
And again, we can throw a number out there, and maybe we keep going and throttle down and get a little bigger.
Yeah.
But I think for right now, that's probably a reasonable target for us. Also within the Sun Belt region, we're currently Virginia all the way down to Florida, over to Georgia, Tennessee. We've got a couple outliers in Houston. So we're not adverse to going outside of the Sun Belt, as long as the opportunity makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be kind of our target for the time being. And then, who knows what happens down the road, but right. That's our target.
Yeah, big opportunities come along. Well, I was just curious because, my experience, again, has been you get above 300, you get into the 500s, things start to get, you've got to be really coordinated to pull that off. And then obviously you've got some of the bigger guys with thousands of facilities, but even then, it reaches limits around really being able to put your hands on your customers and taking good care of them.
100%. And I think we're all kind of aligned in that thought process as well on our team when we have that discussion.
Yeah.
Because right now, all of our managers, all of our clients know that, they can pick up the phone and get to one of the owners of the company.
Right.
Whatever the issue is. And I don't think we would ever want to let go of that ability to be able to provide to our customers. to an
Yeah,
extent. So
that's great. All right, so now I foreshadowed it just a little bit, but tell us about sort of Pivot's approach to technology and how you help your customers, your owners and asset owners decide what technology to put in, when to put it in. It seems to me that things are changing so fast. It can be a big challenge to keep up, but at the same time make sure that everything operates as efficiently and to spec, if you will.
yeah, and Brian, I would say that that's probably one of the bigger challenges that everybody's facing. It's not just us, right? It's
Yeah, for
everybody,
sure.
all the operators out there, all the anybody who's basically running or consulting for an operation is probably having a tough time right now keeping up with the evolution of
Yeah.
all the technology that's
Yep.
coming out. But that's I think another thing that sets Pivot apart and the uniqueness that we have is that we are remaining technology agnostic, and that allows us to make sure that we're customizing the right fit for each scenario, each location, each environment, each use case. You know, again, being unique and not cookie cutter, it does allow us to customize and provide a customized solution
Yeah.
for each and every one of our clients. And we have several that we're working with now, whether it's a parks solution, whether it's a mobile payment platform, enforcement. I mean, every platform out there, we've continue to thoroughly vet, and it comes down to the use case, right? And what makes the most sense in that particular market, in that particular building, all the way down to the customers that are parking in that asset. One may not make sense over the other. And so that's allowed us to be nimble and, help our customers pivot if they feel they've been locked in or, may not have been provided options in the past. We are now able to provide options and work with them.
Yeah, that's good. It seems to me that you've got two choices, right? You can go best in breed, or you can go all in one or turnkey. And I've seen both work. Obviously, selfishly, as Parker, we are just one piece of a bigger technology solution, and so we feel like we can plug in different places because it really is human error that's causing the problem. Most of the technology works. It's really the humans that don't work.
I would agree. Not 9.5 times out of 10.
It's and people have heard me say it before. The data bears it out that 85% of the calls are because of human error, not because of machine error. Only about 15% of the time is the machine the problem. So that's good. All right. So what else would you like to tell us about pivot parking that's important before we transition into the lightning round?
Well, again, I think, we're just, excited to have the opportunities that we've been given. And what's going to continue to set us apart is our diligence and our focus on being, best in class, providing that personal touch with each and every one of our clients and customers and our employees that we're not going to lose sight of. We've got this train on the tracks, and we like where we're headed. We've got a super talented accounting team. We've got some marketing team members that are helping us with our growth along the way as well. And so we've invested in people and kind of paid it in advance, knowing that we've got some good growth coming, and so we're prepared for that. We've got the infrastructure built. We've just got to keep the train on the tracks and running, and that's what we're looking forward to doing.
All right, so let's take a stab at the lightning round. I call it the lightning round. It's really 6 questions that I ask everyone, and so the first question is, what phrase are you known for? In other words, someone down the line utters a phrase, they know instantly that originated at your desk. What is it?
Well, it's funny because the name of this podcast, you would have thought I came up with it, but no. Parking. How hard could it be?
How hard could it be? I mean, Everyone.
And that's why I love parking. I love the industry because
Yeah.
every day is different. Just when
Yep.
I think I've seen and heard it all, another day happens.
Yes.
But my managers will tell you when they'll either pick up the phone or email me something that has happened, or my response is usually starts with, "Parking, how hard could it be, buddy?"
I love that. It is absolutely the truth. How hard could it possibly be? I mean,
Move them in, move them out, smile, wave, take their money, away you go, right?
away you go. That's exactly
Piece of
right.
cake.
Yeah, piece of cake. Sure. Come on down. Try it for a day. All right. So, my next question then is, what's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life? Not necessarily related to parking. What's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life?
You know, I've been blessed and fortunate in my life, Brian, that I haven't had to deal with too many tribulations, and both my parents are healthy and my family's healthy. Everybody is doing well. But my wife and I years ago got into rescuing pets, cats and dogs.
Okay.
And the first rescue that she literally rescued him, a kitten on the side of a road in a monsoon downpour storm. And this guy and I spent the next 6 months bleeding basically because he liked her and her only, didn't like me. And that was tough, but became my best bud, would lay on my chest. And so 13 years later, unfortunately, we were faced with the decision and recommendation, to put him down. And oh my gosh, man, I have never cried so hard. That was probably the toughest thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah, I get it. We've got a golden retriever. Sam is, I think he's going to be 12 or 13 maybe this year. And I told Jill, no more. I cannot take it. We had to put one of our dogs down. This is Phoebe. We probably put Phoebe down. It's probably been 6 or 7 years. And that was so hard. Like, this is it. We had Sam already. And I'm like, no more. So thank you for rescuing all those animals. It means you got a soft heart. But, man, letting those pets go is really tough. Well, I'm glad your parents and your family's healthy. That is key. It reminds me of the phrase I'd heard somewhere that the good old days are today. So you gotta remember that today is the best day, and the good old days are today. So that makes me think of you. You got all the pieces are fitting together, so that's good. Okay, so now my next question is, what's the hardest thing about your parking job? And you can pick a couple. Obviously, at your level, you've probably got different things that are hard, but maybe go back to your valet days or go back to your earlier days, like the hardest part of that parking job.
Yeah, I think today the hardest part is probably, like we talked about, is keeping up with all the technology and the changing within the technology and the offerings, right? Even though, like I said, we do a very good job of that, and we're constantly vetting everything before we select a partner or technology for one of our clients. But I think that's probably one of the most challenging areas today.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, in the valet world, it was getting that car back as quickly as the customer wanted it, right?
Yes, with no scratches.
With no scratches.
So next question is, if you could wave your magic wand and fix anything in parking, what would it be?
And we touched on this, or you touched on this a few minutes ago as well. It would have to be to figure out some way, somehow, to get our customers to actually read the sign, that we spend so much time in deliberation making sure that it is as clear and concise and functionable as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And yet they still, for whatever reason, don't read them.
No. None of us read signs.
That you could put a neon sign everywhere you wanted to, and they still wouldn't be able to read it. So that would be the one thing that I would fix by a magic wand.
Okay, magic wand. Everybody read signs. That's a good one. I like that one a lot. Okay. So when you're not parking cars, what do you do for fun?
Well, besides spending time with my family, my wife, my beautiful wife, and two kids. Well, I've got my son's still at home. My daughter has moved out. She's doing great, and he's actually working for my wife. So that makes for some interesting dinner conversations
I'll
at
bet.
night. Obviously, having a good dinner with them, nice glass of wine at the end of the day, and of course our 3 rescue dogs. But outside of family time, it's golf when and wherever I can. I don't get to play nearly as often as I used to, but that's my passion. As I look.
Well, I should have known that if I didn't know it. We've probably talked about it before. You've got an open invitation to come to Indianapolis anytime you want. You want to load up, come to Indianapolis. I've got at least one track that you would love to play.
All right, I'll have to figure out a time to take you up on that.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, so then the last question is, what are you most proud of?
Well, again, besides the canned response of my family and
Yep,
my kids
sure, of
and the
course.
successes that they've enjoyed and achievements that they've been able to accomplish. But right at the moment, I'm most proud of what we've been doing with Pivot. I mean, it
Yeah,
has been such an exciting ride with the team and the partners, and being now in continued scale up mode. Uh, it was a little scary at first making the jump after so many years. I think Tina and I both were a little nervous. Scott was
sure.
ready to do it all over again, and
Yeah,
he was chomping at the bit, and had convinced Paul to come along for the ride. And by the way, in the middle of a pandemic, right when nobody's parking, who the hell starts a parking company? Well, we did. So I couldn't be more proud of the team's efforts and the success and that we've already experienced and that we're
yeah,
going to in the coming years as well.
yeah. That's great. Well, congratulations on that success. We certainly appreciate the opportunities we have to work with Pivot. I appreciate the times we've spent together. Please come to Indianapolis, play golf anytime you want, and let's just continue to enjoy success together.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for you guys and your partnership. Have been part of our success, right? To spend the money and effort to try to do it ourselves and build our own probably just wasn't in the cards, right?
Yeah,
In the startup mode that we found ourselves at the beginning. So having a partner like Parker Technology has been super helpful and very, very helpful in our success. So thank you guys very much as well.
yeah, I appreciate that very much. Okay, well, that feels like a great place to sort of put a bow on it. Okay, welcome back to segment 2 of Harder Than It Looks. With me today on segment 2 is Wade Hiner, the president of Destiny Homes in Des Moines, Iowa. Wade Hiner is a husband, father, volunteer, eternal student, and all-around great human being. Let me tell you how I got to know Wade and how he came to be my guest here on Harder Than It Looks. First, you should know that Wade built the one and only home that Jill and I ever built, and that was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa in 1997, nearly 30 years ago. Wade made such an impression on me then that I've never forgotten him. And so I was traveling a lot in Iowa, all over the state of Iowa, half the state of Illinois, half of Wisconsin, and for my job. And he and Jill became fast friends. He was just a guy that you loved to be around, and he always did what he said he would do, and he always did the right thing. So when I thought deeply about it, one of the most awesome characteristics of Wade that I can think of is that he possesses this uncanny ability to inspire trust from the moment you meet him. In fact, we hadn't talked in probably 25 or more years. One day he pinged me on LinkedIn. We reconnected and talked like there hadn't been a 25 gap between our chats. Since the first time we've met, he's built more than 4,000 homes over a 35-year career, but he insists he's not here to talk about building homes. He'd rather tell us 2 stories in particular that will inspire you all. I can't wait to get to it. So without further ado, Wade, welcome to Harder Than It Looks.
Man, Brian, if I live up to half of that introduction, it will be a miracle. But I do pride myself in wanting to help good people. And when good people come in your path, like yourself and Jill and your family, it is a pleasure and it is an honor to help you do what I do. And that is, build a home.
Well, build homes for now, but we'll get to your future plans.
Yeah.
So something that you should know, this will make us both feel old because it made me feel old about 3 weeks ago. Emerson actually got engaged 3 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
So that's
so the last time I saw her, she came up to my kneecap, just to put that in perspective.
It's been a long time. I'd like to start by saying you when we reconnected, I don't know, it's probably been a couple months. It sounds like you've become quite the connoisseur of podcasts. And so I'd like to hear how that came about.
Yeah. So my career has taken me all kinds of different directions. And when I was asked to join the team at Destiny Homes, our plan was to maybe commute for a couple of years from the eastern side of the state of Iowa to central Iowa to kind of get my land legs about what the operation was about, and then take it to the east side. We just haven't quite gotten around to that yet. 7 years later,
Okay.
7 years later, I have traveled. I think I tried to look at odometers on past vehicles. I think I'm over 450,000 miles. And with that amount of time on the road, you start to absorb podcasts on a daily basis. And I got to be honest with you, it's made me a smarter person. I didn't know that that was even possible. I hated school as a kid, but I'm telling you, these people have got knowledge that they need to pass on, and they love to pass it on. I'm just a sponge.
Yeah, that's awesome. Off the top of your head, any good ones that you'd like to point my listeners to, besides Harder Than It Looks, of course?
Of course. My go-to guy is Ed Milet. Ed basically brings people on his show that have overcame impossible stuff. I mean, some guy was trying to jump a rope with fire on it and burnt his legs. He burnt himself, like 70% of his body jumped in the ocean to try to save himself. And in the hospital room, they asked him, "What's your Everest?" Meaning, it's time to climb Mount Everest. And lo and behold, he did it. He goes and he summits 7 of the highest mountains. After this happens, wins Ironman. I mean, it's those types of things that make me look internally to say, what's your excuse? I mean, At that point, you have no excuses to do whatever it is that you set your mind to, right? So I like that inspiration. And that's why, Brian, when you asked me to come on here, I said to you, nobody's going to care who I am. Nobody's going to care what I've done, but someone might be helped by the perspective change that I have received over my career. And oftentimes you hear people talk about, that NFL guy, he's got such a platform and he's doing a great job and telling everybody his story. Well, everybody has a platform. I don't care if you're digging ditches or you're a nurse or name it. You have a platform. You have the ability to affect people, and we all need to be using that platform. And do you see these gray hairs?
Yeah,
These are earned. These are lessons learned throughout the years that I can now share with others. I mean, they say, if you want to know what the road ahead is, ask the people coming back. And I'm coming back. I want to be that person coming back to share with others what I've learned on a perspective shift, which is the 2 ideas that I gave you that are much better than building houses.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. So if you want to know what the road ahead looks like, ask the people coming back. I love that. That's good. And I can hear the inspiration from you. I love that. We've all got a platform. Okay. Well, then let's get into it. Yes. So perhaps I can set the first one up just by saying when I see a phone call ring on my phone, in fact, I just got one probably 20 minutes ago. I don't know that number. I'm not picking that call up. but you have a different perspective. So tell us your perspective and then tell us your story behind the perspective.
100%. How many cold calls do we all get every single day? Lots,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, 10 at least a day.
At least 10, okay? And that person has a story to tell, right?
Yeah.
But we're too busy to hear that story. We're too busy to hear that story. We know for a fact we judge the phone call based on there's no way I need what that person has, right?
Right.
Well, that might be true, but there is a person on the other end of that phone that is more than just a salesperson. They are a person who has a story, who could potentially help you, whether you want to do business with them or not. So here's my philosophy. If someone makes the time to search out me and my phone number and track me down on my phone, that's the type of person I would hire, to be honest with you. And so I want to give everybody the courtesy of answering that, not only answering that call, but I will not let them jump into their speech until I understand a few things about them. Who are they outside of work? What's their family life like? What are their hobbies? And overall, what's their outlook on life? It's amazing what people will tell you before we even launch into business, right? If you ask those questions, flip the script.
Yeah.
So one day, what started all of that mentality was one day I got a phone call. We're going to call him Doug. Okay. Doug gives me a call and he says, "Hey, Wade, I was just down the street working with your competitor, and he told me that you would be the perfect candidate for me to contact." I'm like, well, I'm really glad my competitor believes that. That's awesome. But the fact that you did that homework and looked me up, you're asking for 15 minutes in my conference room, Doug, let's do it. So Doug schedules the appointment, shows up when he says he's going to show up. We sit down in the conference room. Great, right?
Yep.
So Doug launches into why he wants to be there. And why he's there is Doug thinks that I could use a business coach. And so this is the reason why I don't like cold calls, because Doug does not know me. I'm not saying I don't need a coach. I'm just saying that Doug thought I needed a coach. Okay. And maybe I did. I don't know. But so I just so happened to be in the commercial construction business at the time. Our business was thriving. We were increasing sales every year. And I just looked at him and I said, "Look, Doug, thank you for coming in and sharing with me all the great things that you do for people in my industry. I don't doubt that one bit. I am not going to hire you. But Doug, I like you. You are a good person. Could we set up a time to network once a quarter, once a month, whatever you like, and we'll sit down with coffee. You can tell me some success stories. I'll tell you some, and maybe we can share leads. How about that?" He agreed. So Doug and I put the calendars together and we map everything out for the year. And the first meeting was great. Doug and I sat down for coffee. We hit it off like fast friends, maybe exchanged a few leads and parted ways. And I felt good about it. And so I thought, there might be something to this, until the next meeting came. And this is where everything shifts. So I show up at the scheduled time on time, which is 15 minutes early. Because by the way, Brian, on time is late. 15 minutes early, I'm sitting in.
But you're not a military guy, right?
I'm not. I just try to stay out of the game. So anyway, I show up at the coffee shop, and 45 minutes later, I'm not seeing Doug.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting a little sour, like, hey, look, my time's valuable. I put these on the calendar on purpose because I wanted to help somebody. And now this is where we're at. Okay. So maybe I got a little bit burned by that. So I go to the office and I'm upset. And of course, just really sour. So that night my phone rings. It's like 9:00 at night and it's Doug. And so I'm looking at the phone and I'm thinking, he's going to give me some cockamamie excuse as to why he wasn't there.
Yeah.
But But I pick up the phone and Doug says, Wade, I'm really sorry. And I go, yeah, I am too, Doug. I said, and I started into all of the things that, I could have been doing, but he interrupted me. And he said, Wade, I need you to do me a favor. And I go, well, I was about ready to lay it on you why I'm upset that you missed the meeting and now you're wanting a favor. He said, I need you to take over a nonprofit organization for me that I'm the head of here in Eastern Iowa. And I said, Doug, what? I go, I don't understand. He goes, well, I am down at the University of Iowa hospitals and was just diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. And I have a 2% chance of living. And the doctors are saying I'm not leaving this hospital.
Wow.
So you can imagine the conviction that I had at that point in time where I was like, and you were mad because you took an hour of your day.
Yeah.
So Brian, I'm just going to ask you, if someone were to ask you that question with that premise, I mean, is there another answer besides yes? I mean,
no. I mean, the answer would be yes.
The answer was yes. Okay. The answer was yes, because my friend Doug was in need and I have no idea what he's about to say. I have no idea what I'm about to sign up for, but I just said yes. This is where my perspective of using my platform for something other than building houses, making money, and getting that success that society says you have to have. Okay.
Yeah.
My perspective of wealth was things you can see, but I'm about to show you wealth is something you can't see. Okay. That's what this story is really about.
Yep.
So I say yes. I say, Doug, what is it? Well, he's the Eastern Iowa leader of a nonprofit organization that has ex-NFL athletes that they send around the country to talk to kids. So your job as the leader in an area is to call schools, line up assemblies, and raise money to have the athlete come. And then gather volunteers to drive that person around to all of his dates, right? Yep. And so I say to Doug, okay, when is it? It's 3 weeks from now. All right. How much money do we have raised? Zero. Okay. Zero. How many schools do we have lined up? Zero. Okay. So I hang up that phone and I'm thinking, man, what have I gotten myself into? I got a kind of a stranger, only met him a couple times, but now he's asked me to take on this monumental kind of task. And I said I would do it. And so, like you said in your intro, I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. Yep. So I raised the money. I called every school principal I could possibly call. I didn't know what I was selling. I was just asking for, please give us 45 minutes of your time sometime within this week. And I fortunately got a few to say yes.
Okay.
So the day comes. I drive out to the Cedar Rapids airport on a Monday morning. And the whole time I'm driving out to the Cedar Rapids airport, I'm thinking, you are such an idiot. I cannot believe what you're doing here. You're going to waste an entire week of your life because some stranger is asking you to do this. This is the most incredibly stupid thing I have ever agreed to. So I pick the gentleman up. His name is escaping me right now, but he was the fullback. Tim, his first name was Tim. I can't remember his last name. He was the fullback that blocked for Jerome Bettis for the Pittsburgh Steelers back in the 90s. Okay. So Tim's speech was, I got all the headaches. Jerome got all the glory, is basically what he told me. Okay. So anyway, we had a small talk in the car. We're driving out to the first school. The first school is out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, Brian. I mean, we are driving on a gravel road in between tall cornfields, and this guy's looking at me like, where are you taking me?
Are we going? Yeah.
I go, Tim, I promise we're going to a school. I'm not leaving you for dead. I promise. So here's the drill. the drill is this. So we go in and we meet with the administration. We meet with anybody that will come in, like counselors, coaches, teachers, anybody that will want to meet us ahead of time to kind of talk about, hey, here's what we're going to talk about. And this nonprofit's motto is, you're not born a winner, you're not born a loser, you're born a chooser. And those choices that you make really are going to shape the rest of your life. And so
I like it.
Yeah, it's great. And so they were talking, is there anything within this school that maybe I could, tailor my speech to? And everybody around the room was like, nope, just do your thing. Okay, great. So my job as the volunteer is I've got a stack of 300 comment cards. So every kid that walks in that gym, I'm handing them a card. I'm saying, will you please just write something down? Anything that strikes you. I'm thinking there's going to be paper airplanes flying, and it's going to be a disaster. So Tim sets up, and I'm watching the kids, and of course, bleacher full of kids. Everybody's talking. Nobody's paying any attention. And so Tim lights up his first slide, and the principal comes out and says, hey, we're going to give this guy our undivided attention, okay? Yep. I'm like, yeah, right. So Tim's first slide is a picture of his best friend, his graduation picture of his best friend. His best friend is laying in a casket, deceased. Oh. Okay. So Tim points out, this is my best friend. In third grade, he made a decision to be the class bully. And that decision followed him all the way through high school. And just before graduation, somebody got fed up and they shot him. And so that's his graduation picture. Once he said that, I was laser focused on the kids. Everybody stopped fidgeting around. They got laser focused on Tim. Okay.
Yep.
There's something magical happens. So anyway, he goes through his speech, and he's really, really good at connecting with the kids because, the kids are like, well, you're an NFL athlete. I mean, you were rich and famous. What do you got how are you going to relate to me? Well, first of all, that story related. Second of all, talking about having to sell drugs in the street with his brother to make it, buy because his parents were gone. And I mean, just all kinds of things that these kids from rural Iowa were like, whoa, all of a sudden, holy mackerel, this guy is real.
Yeah.
So he gets to the end of his speech, and here's how it works. He asks the audience, can I answer any general questions? But you can all come down. I'll sign an autograph, whatever.
Yep.
So first girl raises her hand, and he calls on her, and she says, okay, so I'm a senior here. And all 4 years that I have attended this school, I have been bullied every single day. I tell the principal, I tell my teachers, I've tried to bring it up to the counselor. Nobody does anything about it. And Tim goes, well, that's the reason why I'm here. So when we're done, young lady, I want you on the side over here, and we're going to have a conversation. She said, no problem. So anyway, so then the questions come, how much money did you make? How many cars do you have? All that stuff.
Yeah. By the way, did you look at the administration when this young lady said that?
Brian, I was standing right next to the superintendent and the principal who just told us there's nothing going on here. And it was all I could do to not go.
Wow.
So it became very, very apparent that either they were doing a lot of ignoring or they just didn't know.
Yeah.
So I'm collecting the comment cards like crazy, and Tim is signing autographs, and the young lady kind of stands off to the side, and Tim just waves me and says, go on, and so I wait in the car. About 20 minutes later, he comes out. And so we go to the next small town that has a restaurant, and we sit down for lunch. And he goes, we're going to read every single one of those cards before we go to the next assembly. I said, okay. He gives me half. The very top card, Brian, and I'm not kidding you. A lot of the details of my stories might be a little fuzzy, but this one's not.
Yeah. Okay.
This young lady writes, I am going home today to kill myself because I am sick and tired of the constant bullying. And she writes her name on the top of the card. And so, Brian, right then and there, I go to myself, this is why I'm doing this. All of that, what are you doing? This is the stupidest thing you've ever done. Why are you wasting a whole entire week on this? You have so much work to do. Nothing's getting done. All these things are falling. All that stuff, all of those cares went away.
Yeah.
And I turned that card over and I showed Tim. I go, this normal? He goes, let's go. We got back in the car. We drove back to the high school, walked in, and were met by the secretary. And we said, we have to talk to the principal. Nope, sorry. He's in meetings. Tim walks past her, grabs the door, opens it, and says, whatever you're doing right now is not as important as what I'm about to tell you. So we got everybody in the conference room. We showed them what was going on. We called the authorities. We called the parents. We called counselors. Everybody assembled at that table. And this young lady walks in, tears just streaming down her face. And she said, finally, somebody's listening to me. Finally, somebody's listening to me. I was like, whoa. That's why I'm doing this. We just saved a life. We just saved a life. That's pretty good stuff, right?
That's great stuff.
That's great stuff.
Goodness.
And it's all it's all because, Brian, of a cold call. I answered a cold call, which changed my perspective on life. It changed everything I have ever looked at through any lens on life. Whether I'm, driving a job site and see 15 people on the job site, my lens is what's going on in their lives and how can I help them? I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's a guy putting up siding. I don't care if it's a guy hanging drywall, putting shingles on, picking up trash, whatever it is. Those people have a story and they need help. And here's the thing. You are most qualified to help the person that you used to be. Really think about that. So I was that person who just wanted to put his head down and do the job and do it well and make the money and all the things that come with that. And that's what everybody, I think, is trying to do. I'm now a recovering workaholic. I'm not there yet. I'm not recovered.
Wait till I tell them all that you got to the job site at 1:00 this morning.
You weren't supposed to say that.
Well,
I am a recovering.
What you have to do.
I am a recovering workaholic, but I feel like with that changed perspective, I can help others do the same. And so I have a book idea, and I've got an outline, and I have written the title. It's way too long, but basically the title is "The Resume That You'll Never Write Is 1,000 Times More Powerful Than All of the Ones That You Will Combined." And the reason why I say that is, Brian, if you're an alcoholic and you're trying to become sober, and I'm not, but my buddy next to me is, who is going to be able to help you the most? My buddy next to you. Why?
Yeah.
Because he's been through it, right?
Yeah.
And what he thought disqualified him from life was that failure of becoming an alcoholic. But that's what actually qualifies him to help you, because you're not going to listen to me because I got nothing to say, right? But everything that he has to say will be inspiring to you. And that's really the perspective shift that I'm trying to get people to see, is that this work-life balance thing is BS, Brian. It's life. We have one life and we work while we're in this life, but we also do other things in this life. But it's our job as to whatever that is to find fulfillment. Let's thrive. Okay. Let's not just exist. Let's not get up in the morning and go, oh my gosh, another day that I got to endure. Let's get up and say, this is what I get to do. And oh, by the way, everybody that gets in my path is going to be better because I was there. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way I want everybody to look at things, because That one meeting that morning really turned the light bulb on for me that I was going in the opposite direction that I needed to go. And it taught me a lesson that no matter where I go, it doesn't have to be in an assembly with an ex-NFL athlete, although I am still volunteering for that organization. Don't get me wrong, because I love it. I love it. But what that does is that leads to other opportunities because they're around us, Brian. You just got to open your eyes and see them.
Yeah.
The clerk that you buy your coffee from at the local gas station, she has a story too. She's got struggles too. And I guarantee you a smile and you're doing a good job makes the most difference in the entire world. You don't have to have $1 million. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, you're on fire. So I want you to keep going because you've got a second story.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not even sure how to set this second story up other than the fact that you said it was a roadside encounter. So
yes, sir. Yeah.
You're doing a fine job. Off you go.
Hey, they say you set a man on fire, people come and watch. So I hope that's the case.
I'm watching right now. I'm enthralled. I'm sure Courtney is just eating this up behind the scenes. So we're going to leave this podcast inspired for sure. It's already happening. That's awesome.
Honestly, that's the whole point of anybody listening to something is to get a little bit better. They don't care who I am or what I've done, but they're never going to remember what you say. They're never going to remember what you do, but they're always going to remember how you made them feel. And I hope by sharing these stories, I make them feel something to flip that switch inside to go, I'm more than X, Y, or Z. And I've got more to offer than that. And people in my path can benefit from it. That's all I'm saying. And I will tell you, the roadside story was a great shift because life happens and you can forget what I just told you. And I forget. Oftentimes I forget what I just told you. And so one day after the last stop at a last job site, I'm getting on the highway to go home finally after a few hours. Remember,
you're not even going to tell us what time it was.
No,
it was late.
Recovering workaholic. Okay. But anyway, so I'm getting on the highway and there is a gentleman sitting on a 5-gallon bucket with a dog, with a huge backpack, looks like stuff, and a pull-behind cart. He had a pull-behind cart as well. And that's what I saw. And so as I'm accelerating up the ramp, I go, oh, wait a minute. That's not right. So I pull off to the side of the road. I back up and I'm reaching in my pocket, trying to grab my wallet. And I get out of the truck and I walk towards this gentleman and he starts laughing. He is laughing like I just told him the best dad joke I've ever told.
Yeah.
And I go, you gonna let me in on the joke? He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm here to help you. He goes, he's doing this. Did you see a sign? I said, I didn't see a sign, no. He goes, so what are you doing here? I said, well, does your dog need some water? I can run up to the gas station and grab some water. And he started laughing again. And he goes, did you see a sign? I said, I got to apologize to you. I said, I thought you could use some help. And I thought that I could help you. I said, is there a place that I could take you? And he looked at me and he goes, you don't get it, do you? And I said, obviously not. He said, I am just fine right here. You know where I am right now? I am right here, but you're not. And I'm looking at him and he goes, yeah. He goes, you're going to go get in that big expensive vehicle of yours and you're going to think about the 15 different places that you need to be today, tomorrow, the rest of this week, all of the people that you need to call, everybody that needs your attention, all this stuff, while I'm going to be sitting right here. I said, what if it starts raining? And he started laughing. He goes, dude, you do not get it. He pointed over at the overpass and he goes, see that overpass right there? I said, yeah, that's going to provide any shelter I need at that point in time. I said, okay. I said, well, I don't want to ask any more questions, but I do want to tell you that I stopped with good intentions. And he said, so did 2 others before you. And he goes, now, why don't you go get in the truck and learn the lesson that I just taught you? Be where you are.
Okay.
I got in the truck. And I had to call somebody. I called somebody and I go, I got to tell you, I just learned a lesson. And they're like, tell me about the lesson. I go, I learned it from a guy who has nothing, but he has everything. And that's the lesson is he had nothing, but he had everything. What he had was peace of mind. And in this world where we're up and at it and 5,000 things ahead of us, we don't have what he had. And again, that's another lesson that I want to pass on to other people. He made the choice to be where he was at that day. He didn't care where he was. He was just going to be where his feet was. And that really was the most powerful, aside from taking that cold call, was one of the most powerful things I've ever learned from someone who I thought I was going to help. Instead, he helped me. So again, never, ever judge a book by the cover, ever.
Right.
Because there's something to be learned from everyone. Yeah. It's a valuable lesson I'll carry with me the rest of my life.
Wow. Okay. So this guy, he's on the side of the highway, right? This is I-80.
This is I-80.
And
yes,
he's
sir.
there teaching you a lesson.
Teaching me a lesson about being where
He's
you
laughing
are.
like I'm laughing. Be where you are. Okay. Okay. So this is obviously, was this post Doug or pre Doug?
Post Doug. Yeah. So that's my point is I can get going down the road just like everybody else. I am not perfect. I forget these lessons all the time. I get wrapped up in my day and all this stuff gets wrapped around the axle. But then comes this guy on the side of the road that just goes
smacking you.
He absolutely smacked me right in the face. Not physically, but figuratively. And it's what I needed at the time. Yeah.
Well, so I've learned something in my 57 years, and people around me, they laugh when I say this. I tend to be a rather impatient person. And what I've learned about myself is that sometimes I just need to just be for a minute.
Deep breath is good medicine for impatient people, baby.
Oh my goodness, 57 years. And it took me 57 years to figure that out. That's pretty sad, isn't it?
Brian, I was mid-40s when I started volunteering for that group. So it took me a long time to learn the lesson too. And again, I mean, that's why people like you and I should share these stories, because there's a 22-year-old somewhere that's got his or her head down that think the only way to success is to climb the ladder, work the hardest, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that's really not it. Yes, you can do all that stuff, but make sure your eyes are open and you're aware of every single opportunity to help the person that's right in front of you. And things are so much richer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. It reminds me, it's a small thing, but it reminds me of I guest lecture for a gentleman that I know up at Purdue. And so I go into this entrepreneurs class, and there was this, he's probably a sophomore in college. And he, I tend to talk about, your career in 10-year chunks, right? So you learn in your 20s, you earn in your 30s, you get titles in your 40s and blah, 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 right? And the whole point of that is nobody should know what they want to be when they graduate from college. Nobody should know what they want to be when they're in high school. And this poor young man said, wow, I feel like I'm behind already. Like I should choose my path and I'm behind already. And I just wanted to say to him, dude, please slow down. It's going to be okay.
I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
Right? You and me both.
100%. 100%. And I will tell you, one last thing is a good exercise, Brian, that I learned the hard way to do is, so I was talking to a friend of mine and he had just left a wake and he was talking to one of his best friend's wives and telling her what an incredible person this guy was. And when he left, he was feeling convicted because he hadn't reached out to that guy for years, but he saw the announcement. So he went to the funeral to pay his respects. And his point was, why in the world would I wait any longer to make a list of people that I have not been in touch with, that have been impactful in my life, to get back in touch with? And so he inspired me. I made a list of 20 people from my past, wrote them a handwritten letter, send it to their house, asked them if they would give me 1/2 an hour or an hour, whatever, to meet face to face so that I could tell them how impactful they are and what a difference they made in my life. And I will tell you, the first guy, and to your point about how it didn't feel like 25 years went by when you and I talked last time, my high school basketball coach is the first guy I reached out to. He walked in that, I don't even remember where we were. It's just a small little Greasy Spoon restaurant.
Yeah, and probably Perkins.
As soon as he walked in, we hugged each other and we started talking. Man, remember that night that did blah, blah. And no time passed whatsoever. I'd let him get those stories out, but I'd stopped him in his tracks. And I said, Kevin, I want to tell you something, dude. I want to tell you that you are the first person, no matter what the scoreboard said, you are the first person that believed in me. You are the first person that told me, no matter what the scoreboard says, you are going to do incredible things with your life. And you weren't talking about basketball. Yeah, you were my coach. And yeah, you wanted me to score 30 points a night, whatever. But you had genuine interest in me as a person and as a member of society. And I didn't know it at the time, but looking back now, I do know it. And that's why I wanted to be right here with you, telling you that. And I can tell you that those interactions, Brian, pure, solid gold.
Gold.
Yeah.
Gold, I can just imagine.
Highly, highly recommend anybody listening do that exercise. It will change the lives of the people that you contact, and it will get you re in touch with so many different people. And one last story. Can I do one last story?
Yeah, of course. It's your podcast.
You have to use your sphere for every possible good thing. So here it is.
Okay.
My barber, who had been cutting my hair for 35 years, okay? He was my mentor. He didn't even know it. I would walk in there and he's my biggest fan. I would tell him stuff I was up against. Oh yeah, I've been up against that. You'll get through that. I mean, 35 years of that. I couldn't wait to go get haircuts. I got haircut once every 2 weeks just because I wanted to go see the guy.
Yeah.
So he got up there in age and he retired. And so his daughter now cuts my hair. And so, of course, every time I walk in there, I say, how's Fred doing? How's he doing? Well, one day I walked in and she said, he is turning 100 years old. I'm like, oh, wow, incredible. What are you guys going to do? Oh, we're going to throw a party, but we got this really wild idea. I don't know how we're going to pull this off. I go, well, what is it? Tell me. And she said, it's funny because everybody walks up to my dad and they'll say, what is the secret to living 100 years? And if my dad and mom are together, my mom will roll her eyes because she knows what's coming. He says, you have to eat your Wheaties. Apparently Fred ate Wheaties for breakfast his whole life.
For 100 years.
Yeah. So Brian, here's the thing. She's cutting my hair, right? And she says, here's our wild idea. She goes, back in like the 90s, they would put like Michael Jordan on the cover or the face of the Wheaties box. She's like, I would give anything to figure out a way to get my dad's face on that cover.
On a Wheaties box. Yeah.
Okay. So listen, I don't have any skin in that game, but I listened to what they were trying to do. And guess what? In my sphere of influence, I know the manager of General Mills in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Okay.
I call up old Rue Patel. Rue, you are awesome. If you ever hear this podcast, you made this happen, brother. Called up Rue. I said, hey, Rue, here's what just happened. He goes, oh my gosh, wait, he goes, that's pretty expensive to stop the line and, do that. I'm like, well, how expensive can it be, Rue? I mean, this guy's turning 100. He's eaten your product for 100 years. This would be an incredible story for you guys.
Right.
So he goes, let me talk to a few people. He hangs up the phone. 2 hours goes by. He calls me back. He goes, we're going to do it. I'm like, fantastic. So here's what had to happen. So I call his daughter. I say, hey, we're going to need a picture. And she goes, well, what for? I go, well, just give me a picture. She's like, okay.
A good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she gets me a picture. Rue makes it happen. Ships it to her in this pristine box. It's like a plaque you'd set up on your mantle. It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible. They hand this thing to him on his 100th birthday, and it was priceless. The look on his face. He goes, "Is this me?" Yeah, that's you. So my point is, that thing is going to sit in that barbershop, that small little barbershop in Marion, Iowa, with his mug on that box and a story to tell. And guess what? Yeah. If I wouldn't have asked the question, what's your crazy idea? I would have never had a part in it. And I am proud every time I walk in there. It actually kind of brings a tear to my eye when I see that Wheaties box, because that man on that Wheaties box was pouring into me and he didn't even know it my entire life. My entire life he was pouring into me, and I want to be him. That's what I'm talking to you about today. That's what I'm talking.
You want to be him?
Yeah.
All right. That's well, you know what? You already are. So here's what I'm going to do. On the podcast, I am declaring to the vast parking audience and the audience that's going to listen to you, that when you decide to take your show on the road, I'm going to manage your show for you.
Fantastic. Right? Fantastic.
And then maybe I'll come out and tell a story or two just to warm the crowd up.
Hey, listen, Brian, facts tell, stories sell.
Yeah, for sure.
It's 100% true. Nobody's going to sit here and listen to, I'm Wade Hiner, I'm a home builder, I've done this, I've done that. They don't care. They do not care.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's good. Those are good stories. Okay, so one of the things that we do on the podcast, and I'm going to have to throw you into a little bit of a lower gear, unless it's a funny story. That's fine. Everybody's got a parking story.
Okay.
So you got a parking story?
Yeah. So I was in commercial construction for a long time. I'd say 7 years. And one of the most difficult things for the company that I was working for was we had self-performed concrete guys that were really good at building parking structures. But the heartburn of it was they were so competitive to get. It's like, 15 people show up to bid day, right? So my idea was, how about we go around to some municipalities that, they're starting to grow up. They don't see the need yet, but let's show them the need. And so my small, sleepy little Marion, Iowa is starting to grow up. It's almost 40,000 people. And I'm starting to notice that there's a lot of cars on the street. And so what we did was we went into the city and said, look, we will build you commercial space on the main floor, but we want to provide a parking structure. You would have thought that idea was like winning the lottery for the company I was working for, because they didn't understand that we could actually be the lead on that without any competition, right? And so I guess when you're thinking about parking, and it is hard, and that whole arduous process of, well, how are we going to get people to pay for that? Well, we don't have people that pay for parking in Marion. How are we going to ever ask them to pay 50 cents at a parking? Things change, don't they, Brian? Things change.
Indeed.
And when you,
all right, so
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, finish.
When you build amenities around that people have to walk to, that are desirable for people to walk to, they're going to need a place to park. And so I think there are creative ways in which we in the industry can help municipalities solve their problems. It's going to be a public-private partnership sometimes, because we are going to need to put some amenities within the parking space that obviously make the numbers work a little bit better for the developer. But yeah, there's all kinds of opportunity there. And that was my one kind of foray into parking in my career.
Well, what's funny is when I went to your LinkedIn profile this morning to get your title and the name of your company, I did some last minute research.
Sure.
I saw that you are connected to 3 people in parking.
Yeah.
So Casey Jones,
yes,
Romy Valera,
yes,
and Vanessa Soulsby.
You know these people? Vanessa used to live in Cedar Rapids. Now I think she's out in Colorado somewhere.
She is in Colorado. Yep.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have connections. Like we know people together.
Brian, I convinced Romy to fly from Florida to Iowa in December during that time to help me figure it all out.
Romy is a legend in parking.
Is he?
A legend. Oh,
wow.
Yeah. He is.
I'm honored that he did that. I'm honored that he did
been on my podcast. So,
okay.
Yeah. And Casey Jones actually connected us to our manager of technical services, because it's his sister. Might be his sister-in-law. I'm sorry, Lisa. I should know that. I think it's his sister-in-law, actually. But he saw that we had a job. She was moving with her husband to Indianapolis. We connected. It was a perfect fit.
My friend, it is a small world. You are literally, I say this to everybody all the time, you are one meeting away from changing everything. You are.
Yeah.
You just have to open your eyes and see it.
Yep. Open your eyes and see it. Okay. So I can't let you off the podcast without you telling us your long-term plan. I was joking about taking you on the road, but you've got a different plan. So tell us your plan. It's inspirational as well. Yeah, no,
I through the process of this whole, helping people, it's just really bitten me. My fulfillment that I get out of every single day is whoever it is I've come into contact with, I've been able to help. And I've actually made it a practice to ask people this before I leave them. If there was one problem in your life that could be solved right now, what would it be? And I may not have the answer, but I'm going to hold on to that. And and if I can, I'm going to play a small part in helping that person with whatever that problem might be, because that's my job. And so being in construction kind of pigeonholes me into an audience it's great. I love it. Yeah. But I think there's a broader audience for me in a future career, and that is in ministry. I really feel like when I hang up my hammer and nails, it's time to hop up on the pulpit and tell people the good news and to show them how to do exactly what I've been talking to you about, which is be the church no matter where you're at. And you can disguise that any way you'd like. People don't have to know that you are after them for Jesus, right? You can just be that helpful person, because they can look at you and go, there's something different, and what is it? And then they open the door for you to tell them. But I think I've got a little bit of runway left in construction, but the runway gets longer with ministry.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I hope you live to be 100 so you can be a minister longer than you've been a building professional.
That's the goal.
That's fantastic. All right. So super inspiring. I don't even want to end the podcast, but I do want to ask one more question. Is there a question, or is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Yes. You should ask me if there was a problem in my life right now that you could help me solve, what would it be? That's the question I would want you to ask me.
Okay, wait. If is there a problem in your life right now that I can help you solve?
I don't know if you can help me, Brian, but I will tell you this, that there are people in your metropolitan area that could use a smile, that could use a how you doing, that could use a any way I can help you. There are people in your metropolitan area and the people that you run into that if you could help me reach those people with your everyday life, that's something that could help me.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, that is a great way to end. Even though I don't want to end, we might have to do a Wade Hiner segment 2 because you've probably got more stories.
Amen, brother.
That's fantastic. Hey, thank you for
thank you.
Thank you for reconnecting. I'm going to make you parking famous, and then I'm going to help make you famous. How about that?
Listen,
maybe this will go viral.
Hey, listen, the only fame that I want is helping other people, period. I don't want any attaboys, pats on the back. I want people to come back around and go, you know what you did? You inspired me to help somebody else. Yeah. You know, what do they say? What's the when the tide rises, all ships rise? I don't know what that saying is. But
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We all help each other. We all help each other. Everything.
All
you don't need this. You just need to pour it into others. Right. And I really appreciate you, Brian. I really, seriously, really appreciate reconnecting. I really did enjoy working with you and Jill. I really did. And I've never forgotten either one of you. There's a lot of customers I've helped along the way. You were memorable. Jill was memorable. And I'm very honored to be on your podcast. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's a wrap on this episode of Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, presented by Parker Technology. Please leave us a review if you liked what you heard. Make sure you tune in next month as we continue to uncover tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks, parking a car. Bye for now.